Hello again everyone, I'm Magic Dave and this is Sapiens. So first there's a couple of little things that I wanted to show you. I actually made it so that by default all of the user interface is just made invisible. That's probably, so when you go into the game it'll be like this, and then the minute that you click you get the sort of interactivity, and then if you hit escape it will all disappear again. And I think I'll probably make it that after a certain amount of time it'll also, if you haven't clicked on anything for a while, then it will also just make everything disappear. It just, it's getting quite cluttered. I did make it so that you can see them just as a sort of ghost through objects now, which I think is a really good solution for that, because before you couldn't see them, so if they were sort of miles away behind trees and stuff you wouldn't actually be able to see them at all, whereas now you can. So that's good. But I think the major problem here is that the Sapiens have circular markers, and so do all the orders, and I really feel like I need a different shape to really differentiate them, and I think probably a triangle is going to be the right solution there. So I'm going to work on that. So as well as that, part of the reason why I'm working on these markers as well is because it's time to look at the skill focus and all the assignment of skills and things. Now I think that I do need to change the way that this works. I've sort of purposely left it as simple and kind of generic as I could, and I haven't focused on this UI for a long time. Partly because I just wanted to get more of a feel for the game with more Sapiens and feel, how things are going to work out. And I think that the entire design that I've got here is just not really going to work going forward. So I do need to do a bit of an overhaul. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this tribe marker somewhere else, because these are all sort of build options, and this is something quite different. And so the tribe maybe come down here, and we'll have a way to also, I'll add another button to also assign skills. So then when you go into the skills button, there'll be a bit of a tech tree view in here, which will show you how many Sapiens are assigned to each skill, and also allow you to probably select a skill. Let me just go back into here. So it'll be, these sorts of things. So you'll be able to select maybe basic hunting and see that no one's assigned to it, and then actually assigned someone to it through there. Then once I've done that, I'll probably come back and look at this again and actually make something that makes sense when you're looking at an individual Sapien to change what they're doing. I'm going to get started on all of that, and we'll see how I get on. Okay, so I've made a little bit of progress on some of this stuff, and I thought it was time to record another segment. So first up, the markers are now little triangles, and they just show the mood of the Sapien. So we've got a red one over here, click on it and we see they're extremely unhappy. And you can sort of get more information after that. And I'm really liking that. It's really clear where the Sapiens are, and they're easy to distinguish between the orders, so you can really tell them apart. It's sort of, the look of it is a little bit more, like it reminds me of maybe something like Command and Conquer or some kind of RTS, and it's quite sort of gamey looking. But, it just gives you that information. And that's why RTSs, have these sort of brightly coloured primitive shapes and stuff, because it tells you what you need to know. And Sapiens, you're going to have a whole lot of these Sapiens around, and you really do need to be able to know at a glance what's going on. So I think, this is a good solution. But I'll keep tweaking it and keep playing around, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm certainly finding this to be an improvement. So I've also made some decent progress with the task management user interface. So if we hit E, we've got these views here. There's still nothing in here, but this is a new button, the tasks interface. Now I was going to put these somewhere else, and I probably still will, but I just wanted to wait and see exactly what's going to happen here. So for now, they're just going to stick up here as well. So this gives you a list in a kind of tree view of every possible skill or task, I guess, group of tasks that are available in the game. Now, this is still quite early days, so I'm still kind of thinking about exactly how this is going to work, but as you can see, there's spaces between these, and there are kind of tiers of tasks. And I have been thinking about how, basically, so campfire cooking is kind of, it requires butchery and it requires firelighting. So there is a definite sort of tree structure here. But campfire cooking will not be available until you have meat, which is going to be a result of butchery. And other than that, it doesn't really know about fire lighting. There's nothing in the game that says, oh, you've crafted a fire, therefore now something's happened and you can now unlock some other stuff. And I think that needs to change. And I think it's time for a new, totally different mechanic to come in here and actually play that role. So my solution to all of this is to add a thing that I'm going to call discoveries, and they are kind of, I'm quite excited about them because it's something that I've been thinking about for so long, and I just, there are various solutions, but I think this is going to be a good one. So let me just explain a little bit about how that's going to work. So one of the first skills that are going to be on this sort of list, or the first tasks, is fire lighting. Now I think that things like campfire cooking should actually it shouldn't say campfire cooking. This should be a question mark. These are things that you haven't discovered yet. And right at the start of the game, I don't think that even fire lighting should be something that you've discovered. It was always my intent that fire lighting would be like a moment right at the start of the game. Woohoo, you've discovered fire. So the way that I think that's going to work is that when you're first playing and you go into the build menu, this will be a question mark as well. You won't know all of the things that you'll be able to build yet. Campfire is not something that you can do because you haven't discovered fire. And the way that you'll discover fire is that you will click on a branch and have a new option down here to research it. So various objects and items and things around the place will have that option, some option to research them. And once you click that, then that'll get an order associated with it, and any sapien that's been assigned the research task, which I'll need to add in here, will then be able to go over and just mess around with the branches and try to figure out what they can do with them. And eventually they will sort of cause a puff of smoke, and they will discover fire, and it will be sort of an event in the game that will, tell you, hey, you've discovered fire, and you've unlocked the ability to build campfires, and you've probably unlocked some new tasks and new skills as well. So that's the general kind of idea. You'll be able to see that entire kind of tech tree, or at least your current state within that tech tree, in this view here. And I think it's all going to work out. So that view there is not just a view of a tech tree. Also, when you go in and you click on these individual skills, you can now actually assign priorities for all of your sapiens. So this is the first time you've been able to actually see a list of all your sapiens in any one place. They're currently ordered by their distance from you as the player. And I'll probably add a couple of different sorting options for this, but there you can basically just click on these buttons to assign different prioritizations for that. So if you wanted everyone to be able to gather, then you'd probably shift them all into here. I'll add also some buttons to shift everyone if you want. So you can easily sort of move them between the different lists. And if you want to make sure that, probably something like fire lighting, what's going to happen is when that person first discovers fire, they can then they'll get the fire skill, and it will show that in here, and they'll also be moved automatically probably to the allow list. And then if you wanted to, you could actually prioritize fire lighting, and you could even go and to make sure that Nina was set to not allow for everything else, so that's the only thing she did if you liked. I do need to make it so that when you go and inspect a sapien, that you can also assign them all the tasks from this view as well, so you'd sort of get that and be able to just sort of tick and cross on here. So that's something else I need to do. And the whole discovery system, which I'm actually very excited about. And I think it's a new mechanic that I think actually slots into all of this really nicely and solves a whole bunch of problems. Actually, another one that solves for me is that currently, so I've got the ability to craft with flint as well as stone, and it always sort of it makes sense to me that you would have rock napping but then have flint napping as an evolved kind of skill. And that didn't really fit into the whole system as it was, and there was also a problem where if they had discovered flint, then this would be available, but you might not have ever seen it. So it was a bit cheaty, like you'd never actually found flint yourself. So now with the new system, I should be able to make it so that once you have discovered sort of rock napping, once someone has successfully napped something, that it could make it so that when you find flint, you've got a new option to research it. So that means that you as a player have to actually find some flint, and I have found some just up here. So once you find flint, then you'll be able to actually say that you want to research that piece of flint. They'll come over, they'll grab it, they'll take it down to the craft area and try to mess around or maybe just mess around with it up there and try to nap rocks together and eventually discover that they can nap flint, at which point you'll then be able to craft flint tools. So anyway, I've definitely talked about that more than enough now. We'll just have to see how I get on. There is so much work there to do, and I probably will just spend the next week or 3 just working on all of that and see how I get on, and I might end up with something completely different than what I've just talked about, but that's the nature of game development. So anyway, hopefully it all goes smoothly, and we'll see you again soon. Cool, so I've made some really good progress with all of the discovery system and all the task system and all the tech tree and everything, so I'll show you that in a minute. But before I do that, basically when I was sort of getting near the end of that task, I always started to get a bit of a cold, and I've still got it now actually, and it sort of it just makes my brain a bit fuzzy. And so while I was sort of feeling a bit down, I watched a few Let's Play videos, which is something I do fairly often actually. I sort of watch other games, be played by other people. I find it to be really good research. Basically, it's a great way to see both what other games are doing and also how players actually play them. But anyway, I noticed that in a lot of the other games, the grass looked so much better than it does in Sapiens. And I don't know what's really happened. The grass it doesn't look very good, I don't think. And so I just thought I'd sort of figure out why, what's happened here. I think the grass used to look better, and, it could certainly look a lot better than this. I just wanted to show you one last time what this grass looks like. If I go into these options, we can sort of see how the performance is going. So we've got this up quite high. If I turn this right up, it's starting to just drop a few frames. It's not too bad though, but yeah, I mean, you can sort of see the quality of the grass here and how quite sort of sparse it is. Also the tree leaves, I've worked on them too, so I'll just show you sort of what they look like. Quite sort of simple. I was kind of limited by performance a little bit, so I hadn't done too much there, but they looked okay. But anyway, I'll show you what I've been working on and how this all looks very different. Okay, so this is the exact same scene I've just updated to all of the changes that I've made. And you can see the grass is a lot more kind of lush. You can see the wind sort of blowing through it. The leaves are now a lot more dense as well, and sort of, it looks a lot more leafy. The trees and grass are basically all looking just a lot more alive and a lot more interesting. And it actually brings out these paths more too, so you can sort of, they feel a bit more like paths, although I've got a little bit more work to do there too. And the performance, so I'm rendering a lot more grass than I was, and the performance is pretty much exactly the same. And even, I couldn't have done that with these leaves before. So what I've actually done is I first just sort of went over all the grass and figured out what was going on wrong. I did have a couple of bugs that meant that I wasn't sort of making good use of the performance that I had. So I fixed up a few of those little issues. And then I just sort of increased the quantity of the grass and I redesigned all of the graphics bricks as well, just sort of went over it and refined it, and I made sure that they blended nicely into the ground underneath as well. That was sort of something that was going wrong before. Let me just go over to this. Is the rich soil, so that the grass is quite a lot more kind of lush in these areas, so there's quite a well-defined sort of shorter grass here and longer grass here as well. So yeah, once I got it kind of looking a bit better, I did find that performance had gone down a little bit. So when I started looking at performance, I was just looking through some of NVIDIA's documentation on ways of, I guess, improving performance. It was actually designed for OpenGL on mobile, but it still had sort of quite a lot of good ideas on how you can improve performance. And one of the things that when you're rendering a lot of they're sort of like billboards, they're overlapping geometry with a lot of discarded pixels. So these are all textured, and any part of the texture that isn't grass is just basically thrown away. And so you really want to make sure that you're not rendering needlessly multiple times onto your output. You don't want to be rendering each blade of grass and then rendering another one on top, and then rendering another one on top of that, and another one on top of that. And that was what was happening with the leaves and the trees, and with the grass as well. So I found, in that paper, I found a technique where you can actually render the entire scene or certain parts of the scene into the depth buffer first, and then when you render the final color output, you can check whether the result in the depth buffer is exactly the same as what you're trying to output, and you can then not bother rendering it at that point. So basically split it into two passes, where the first pass is only rendering to the depth buffer and doesn't have to do all the lighting calculations and all the complexity that all of the grass has, and then that sort of discards everything in that pass, and then you know that when you're finally rendering the grass properly, that you're not having to re-render the same pixel multiple times. You're only rendering it once for the final pixel that's going to be displayed. So that makes it extremely fast. It's leagues ahead. It's so much faster than it was. I'm still just rendering this on my GTX 1060. The quantity is much higher than it was. If I turn this up, it will stutter a little bit on the 1060 at times. It's not too bad, but yeah, I mean, on a 2080 or something, it'd be rendering this flawlessly at 4K, basically. It just wouldn't even have a problem. I also had a look at the autumn grass as well, and sort of made it look a bit different and added a few more textures there. I'm sure that I will go over this again and do another pass and improve, the diversity, I suppose, in the grass, and make it add some different biomes and different grass types as well. Part of my goal with all of this is to make the process very quick. So there's only a handful of these sort of textures, and I create them in Affinity Designer, so they're sort of just drawn using a vector program, so I'm not having to sort of edit photography and stuff. And same with these trees. I don't actually have to UV edit them or place these manually. They're all procedurally generated and placed onto the geometry of the model underneath. And I'm actually using the same leaf texture for all of the different trees at the moment, but I'll probably make a few variants of those too. So after that, I had a look at the thatch as well, because that wasn't looking very good either, and it certainly looked pretty bad next to the new grass and everything. Before, I also couldn't map any kind of texture onto the objects in the scene itself. And I experimented a little bit with the trees, making a leaf texture actually mapped onto the trees, but that didn't really look very good. But where it does work is for these path blobs. They've now got a texture mapped onto them that matches the dirt texture of the terrain, so they certainly fit a lot nicer now. And it's allowed me to revisit thatch again. This is still a work in progress. But I think it's already a visual improvement, and yeah, I've got a bit more work to go there. Thatch has always, these really didn't look very good, these thatch buildings, I don't think, before, and it was a struggle for me really, because without any kind of texturing, trying to represent hay, this hay still doesn't have any kind of detail texture, and it doesn't really scream hay, you have to say. So now I can use a similar sort of technique as what I've got here and put that on there once I've sort of ironed out the issues and sort of got it looking how I want. But already I'm feeling like this is looking quite a lot better. So anyway, that was all a bit of a sort of distraction for a few days there, but I think it was well worth it. And it was a good time to do it too, because I am really just about to start adding quite a lot more content, and I'm going to start working on some new building types and things like that. So locking in this look at this point was probably a good thing. And it just looks so much better to my eyes. I mean, I think, I hope you agree, but I just think this is leagues ahead of what it was. And, you know, for a few days work, it's really paid off. And the performance is better too. And as far as the tech tree goes, so if we go into the task menu here, I've added some more information to these, and we've actually got a tree showing the progress now. So this is, of course, all a work in progress, and this tree will change. But basically, you'll be able to, these will unlock as you kind of figure out the required things before that. So basic hunting, this will be butchery. So once you've actually managed to hunt something, or once you learn the skill of hunting, you'll see that you can then learn butchery. And once you learn butchery and firelighting, then you'll get campfire cooking will unlock. Will not unlock, but will become visible. So I've just gone into a new world here to show you how the process of sort of unlocking these things goes. So yeah, we've got a new tribe, and we've got everyone's sort of assigned to general labor and basic building. No one's assigned to any of these things yet. Now we want to learn how to make fire, because at the moment, if I go in here, we can't actually build the fire, and it says we require the discovery firelighting. So to do that, we actually have to figure a little bit of something out ourselves, and what we do, and I'm thinking it may still not be clear enough. I might need some sparkles or something on these branches, but when you click on a branch, you've got this new thing that you can do, which is to research firelighting. So once we do that, and we've assigned someone to firelighting, which we can do either through doing it here, so we could assign NASA to researching, or we could also do it through here. So he's got that enabled. We can toggle prioritized, disabled, enabled, so we can get people to then come over and research. And so what he's going to do is sort of do a little bit of an animation and figure out how he can light fire. So at the moment, it's very simple. He's just doing the firelighting animation, which actually, I've got to say, this will be replaced. It is a placeholder animation. But yeah, he'll just figure that out and slowly learn the firelighting skill. And we can actually see that in here. There's a little progress indicator that's going to slowly fill up. And I'll put something up above his head as well, saying that he's sort of learning this firelighting skill. So I'll just speed this up, and we can see what's going to happen. He's nearly done, and there we go. He's managed to light a fire, and the branch is now burning. He's pretty happy sitting by his fire that he's made, and that's kind of a new thing. You can now set a branch on fire. I've got to figure out whether you'll always be able to do that. At the moment, now that research has gone because you have learnt fire, but I think that might just get replaced with the ability to set things on fire, and that fire might spread. Don't know. That sort of has issues, but it would be pretty cool. But anyway, so now he's learnt the fire skill, and you can see that in here. He's got this little badge to say that it's learnt, and he can now build campfires, so we can just place these from now on. And even if he died, the knowledge is still kind of... I think the fact that they've seen that there's a fire sort of means that you've made that discovery, right? Like, I feel that works okay. This will eventually burn out. They're all just gathering the stuff to build that, but he's the only one with the skill at the moment. And we can then assign other Sapiens to firelighting if we like. None of them have the skill though, so if any of them decide to sit down and light the fire, they'll have to actually learn how to do it as well, which will take longer, whereas NASA actually has that skill. So that's how that works. I hope that makes sense. This whole like tree diagram thing was quite a challenge to code as well. It was quite an interesting little exercise, but I think I've figured that out, and I'll have a scroll wheel down here so that you can, or a scroll bar, sorry, so that you can scroll through and find the more advanced technology as you play through the game. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave the video there for today. It's been a really good couple of weeks, and I'm feeling so positive about the game with these new graphical changes. And I think I'm in a really good spot now for going forward with adding content. So I'm quite excited about that. I don't know exactly what I'm going to work on. I'm quite keen to add fishing actually, and sort of explore some of the things around cooking and making clothing and sort of more technological progress, as well as ores and things too. So there's like all that stuff to go forward with now, and I'm quite excited about it. So anyway, we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Until then, we'll see you next time.